Hello everyone, back to today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days, or today's second video, which will take us to around the 10th of May. So we're going through the first 10 days of May, with week 10 day video updates. Now, we'll also have a look at the CFS V2 for the next month. That takes us to pretty much the end of May now. And of course, we'll be able to get sent out beyond the week to 10 day forecast time frame with the extended GFS and also the ECM ensembles. We'll start off by having a look at what's going on in the stratosphere for one final time this season. Just saying, if you're enjoying the videos at the moment, please consider becoming a patron for Gazovitz. This is the Gazovitz patron page. Got 62 patrons so far, so hello and a big thank you to all of our patrons. If you would like to become a patron for Gazovitz, all you need to do is come to the Gazovitz patron page. You sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can pledge an ongoing monthly donation to Gazovitz. It could be anything as little as $1 a month upwards. You'll pool in with everybody else, and by doing that, you become a patron for Gazovitz, and we'll give you a shout out in videos. We'll say thank you very much for becoming our, I suppose it'll be 63rd patron. So big thank you to all of the patrons for Gazovitz. You're helping us to support the website. You're helping us to keep the content online. So big thank you to all of you for doing that. Alternatively, you can give a one-off donation through PayPal. Visit the Gazovitz PayPal page. So you just come here, sign up for a PayPal account. You sign into your PayPal account. Most people have already got one of those, of course. And then you can send a one-off donation to Gazovitz. And whether you do it through PayPal or through Patreon, you're going to get a mention in the videos. We'll say thank you so much for your kindness and generosity. We're primarily ads funded. Will be remaining, so there's no pressure about us going behind paywalls or anything like that. We just need extra revenue stream because the money that we get from ads basically is declining year on year for various reasons. So a big thank you to all of the patrons, big thank you to all of the donors for Gazovitz. Now I was asked, going on from that, I was asked yesterday by one of our patrons, actually, what's happening in the stratosphere. Have we seen an end of the polar vortex? So I thought, actually, it'd be an interesting place to start for this video. So big thank you to that patron for asking us that question. You know who you are, so big thank you for doing that. So let's have a look at what is going on in the stratosphere, and indeed we have pretty much seen an end to the polar vortex. So this is the current temperature at 30 HPA, but let's go just a little bit higher up actually. Let's go up to 10 HPA. So that's like one of the top levels of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. We'll start there, shall we? So the grey line is like the trend for this point of the year. You see that we are on an upwards trend all the time through to summer now. The black line shows where we've been with temperatures at 10 HPA in the top level of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. Going right way back to last autumn, actually. We can go back to the 1st of September, just there. So, of course, we had the southern stratospheric warming around Christmas and through to New Year. That was kind of like the big talking point of this winter, the southern stratospheric warming that occurred around Christmas. After that, it was downhill all the way with the temperature at 10 HPA. The stratosphere became very, very cold through February and into March. Went down to minus 80 when it should have been somewhere around minus 50. So it had a really cold stratospheric temperature late in the winter and through to the early spring. Since around sort of the middle of March into the early part of April, the temperature has been lifting up. See this black line lifting up incrementally, getting towards the grey line, and that's where we are right now, actually. So we're just there. We are now warmer than average with our temperature at excuse me, at 10 HPA. And so the stratospheric temperature obviously has lifted up a lot compared to where it was back in March, and even back to where it was at the start of April, just there. Stratospheric temperatures at 10 HPA have lifted up a lot. That tells us we've seen an end, really, of those cold temperatures at 10 HPA until like sort of August time. That's when it'll begin to get colder again in the stratosphere. You see how this grey line sort of goes on a downwards curve in the second half of the summer. That's August, just there. That's around when the cooling begins in August, and that's when we will see the first signs of the polar vortex beginning to reform for the winter 2019-2020 season. But for now, we have pretty much seen an end of the polar vortex at its roots in the stratosphere. And you saw this where we started, of course. This is a bit lower down at 30 HPA, a bit closer to the troposphere. There also, we have a much warmer than average temperature, or a warmer than average temperature at 30 HPA. And again, same idea you'd expect us to be now at this point until we get through to the sort of second half of summer, when temperatures will start to trend downwards and the polar vortex will begin to come back for the winter of 2019-2020. This is how the temperatures themselves are looking at 10 HPA over the North Pole. So you see all of those blue and purple colours that we had earlier on, a month or two back, that indicated the polar vortex. They've all gone now. Just a final sort of lobe of it left across parts of Canada. But basically these green and yellow colours are now covering the North Pole in the stratosphere at 10 HPA, telling us that the temperature is now much, much warmer. And that is the end, really, of the polar vortex for this season. We run through and we see how the GFS model is forecasting temperatures to look at 10 HPA over the North Pole over the next couple of weeks. You see very little change. You tend to get very little change with the temperature at 10 HPA in the stratosphere in the summer months. So in winter we get these wild swings from extremely cold temperatures at 10 HPA to what can be very warm temperatures at 10 HPA occurring in just a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. That's when we get the southern stratospheric warming, that extreme swing from extreme cold temperatures to very mild, very warm temperatures at 10 HPA, comparatively warm. In summer, you don't get those wild swings in temperature. So we will just maintain these green and yellow colours here over North Pole for the next few weeks. And as I say, as we get towards August, then we will start to see the blue colours just beginning to come back. And initially it'll be very subtle, very slight. And then gradually those blue colours will intensify to get colder and colder as we move into the sort of Arctic winter, which of course occurs very early over top of the North Pole. The Arctic winter will begin in August, and then we'll get going through September and October. But at this time of year, there'll be very little happening, so we won't look at the stratospheric temperatures again until we get into the autumn, I wouldn't have thought. And as far as zonal winds are concerned, they've gone into reverse as well, of course, as the temperature has lifted up at 10 HPA. So the zonal winds have reversed once more. This is from weatheriscool.com. There's loads of different coloured lines with this. I haven't got time to go through all of them. The main one is this black line. That's the trend line. So as the temperature is trending upwards at 10 HPA in the stratosphere, so the zonal winds, the strength of them, trending downwards, weakening. We are in a weakening phase of the zonal winds from now through into the summer until we get to the autumn, and then the zonal winds will start to strengthen once again as the temperature gets colder, of course, in the stratosphere at 10 HPA. This blue line shows how the zonal winds have performed previously. So when we have the southern stratospheric warming around Christmas, of course, the zonal winds did go into reverse for a little while through early January. Through the first half of January, we had a reversal of the zonal winds. Then the zonal winds powering up as we go through February and into March, almost becoming record-breakingly strong in the early part of March with those zonal winds. Since then, the zonal winds have been weakening as the temperature has been lifting up at 10 HPA. So those zonal winds have weakened, and now the zonal winds are in reverse. There we are, we're just there right now, and you can see from the green coloured lines, which are the GFS operational and ensemble members, they keep the zonal winds in reverse through the next couple of weeks. And then the other coloured lines, there's 4, I can't really make them out now, but there's 4 pink and 1 blue line, or 3 pink and 1 blue line. They indicate that the zonal winds will be staying in reverse, as you would expect, until we get through to July. Just the first hints there, right at the very end of the zonal winds beginning to come out of reverse, or starting to edge up anyway, as we get in towards the second half of July. Again, that would be associated with temperatures beginning to cool down in the stratosphere over the North Pole. So basically, the polar vortex is dead for this season. It's gone away, and we now have solar winds in reverse, and we have a warm temperature at 10 HPA, and that will take us through the remainder of what's left of the spring and into the summer. We will see temperatures becoming colder at 10 HPA in the stratosphere towards the end of July and into August as the Arctic winter begins. And at that point, the zonal winds will then come out of reverse, will start to power up the zonal winds. The polar vortex will begin to reform in August, and that will take us through into the autumn and winter of 2019-2020. So that answers the question to our patron who was asking what exactly is happening in the stratosphere at the moment. That's it, and we've seen an end really of the polar vortex for this season. So I doubt we will look at stratospheric temperatures again until we get through to sort of the second half of the summer. Anyway, I have no doubt when we get into the second half of summer, I'll sort of inform you when it looks like temperatures are beginning to cool down and the Arctic winter is starting to get underway. But for the next few weeks, next 2 or 3 months, I doubt we will look at the stratosphere again. Right, so let's get on with the weather for next week to 10 days then. And these are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We're looking at Manchester today. The red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Manchester. And we're starting a little bit warmer than average at the moment. It's a very pleasant day out there today. But we've got this cold snap coming up at the end of the week. So talking about the end of the polar vortex and the end of the sort of Arctic winter of 2018-2019, but it's still pretty cold up there. When the wind gets into the north, we will still know about it. So at the end of the week, we're going to have a cold snap. You're going to have to cover up your delicates on Friday night, and again probably on Saturday night too, as temperatures are going to go below freezing, and that will be enough to cause potentially quite severe damage actually to fruit blossom and to delicate plants. If you put your flowers out, well, you're a bit early for that really, but if you have done it, you will need to cover them up, and you'll need to cover up any sort of delicate plants. Potato leaves, they are prone to being damaged by frost, and there's a lot of potatoes beginning to push up. Even in my garden, I've got a few potatoes coming up, so they'll need covering up at the end of the week. The leaves will be nipped by frost at this kind of level. We'll be talking about going down to sort of -1, -2, maybe -3 on Friday night, which is low enough to cause damage. Into the weekend, the temperature gradually begins to lift up. It's a bit of a slow old process though, not a quick process to get back towards average. It's not really until the early part of next week that we see the temperature beginning to stage something of a recovery, and it's probably going up into the second week of May, up to the middle of the month, but we see the temperature possibly then getting a little bit warmer. But it looks like a relatively chilly start, or first half to May, I have to say. We've done the ECMWF 30-day look ahead earlier on today, and that is indicating quite a cold first half to May, not just for the UK, but for much of Europe actually. And then it's indicating there could be a flip in the second half of the month, going to something a lot warmer perhaps. As far as precipitation is concerned, so we've got some heavy showers coming up tomorrow and Thursday. Then as we get this drop in temperature into the bank holiday weekend, so it tends to turn rather drier. Next week it might begin to trend more unsettled again through this second week of May. It doesn't look overly wet, but it does perhaps look a little bit more unsettled as we get into the second week of May and start running up towards the middle part of the month. Temperature anomalies from the 30th of April to the 8th of May are coming out really very substantially below average now across many parts of Europe. So for the UK and Ireland, we're talking about a temperature anomaly of around sort of 2 to 4 degrees below average. But going into more central and northern parts of Europe, there we're seeing temperature anomalies kind of like 4 to 6 degrees below average. And a few places like the Alps, Pyrenees, some parts of Norway, going down to 6 to 8 degrees below average. So it's a very significantly colder than average week that we've got coming up in the week ahead for much of Europe. Does look warmer across Spain and particularly Portugal. So down across the south of Spain, if you're going on holiday there, perhaps, over the May Day bank holiday weekend, doesn't look too bad there. And much of Portugal looks warmer than average too. Then over towards Turkey, also looks rather warmer than average there, going towards the Black Sea. But generally, it's a cold scene coming up in the week ahead across much of Europe. And precipitation-wise, drier than average week from the 30th of April to the 8th of May for the UK, for Ireland, through most parts of Western Europe. Does look a little bit more unsettled across Scandinavia. Also looks a little bit more unsettled down across that southeastern corner of Europe as well. This is how the GFS operational run is looking for Friday. There's that northerly wind. So if you follow the isobars back, you can see the air is coming from a really, really long way north, plunging southwards across northern and western parts of Europe. So, yeah, proper Arctic northerly winds extending down across the country at the end of the week. And those northerlies keep going into Saturday too. I think the coldest night will probably be Friday night into Saturday. As I say, we could see temperature going down to -2 or -3. By Sunday, this high pressure begins to slip southwards a little bit, just starting to cut off the coldest of those northerly winds. They're starting to be shunted off over the other side of the North Sea. But it'll probably still be chilly, especially at night. Even on sunny, so Saturday night to Sunday morning, probably again producing a fairly widespread frost. Sunday itself will probably feel a little bit better in the strong May sunshine as the northerly wind begins to ease down. The best day is probably going to be Bank Holiday Monday. Again, the closest ridge of high pressure. It's not going to be a heat wave because we're on the eastern side of the ridge, so it means that the air will always be coming in from the north. So it's not going to be a particularly warm Bank Holiday weekend at all, but as the northerly wind tends to get shunted over the other side of the North Sea and hits sort of Denmark and northern Germany, then we will see that we just cut off the northerly, and so in the sunshine it will start to feel quite pleasantly warm. Very, very strong sun now. We aren't all that far away from the longest day. Once we get through to 21st of June, that will be longest day, so we're a little way off it, but we're not that far away from it. So we've got a really high sun, and it's very, very strong. So as soon as we cut off that northerly, it will start to feel quite warm in the sunshine, but potentially still quite chilly by night, even at the end of the May Day bank holiday weekend, I would have thought. Then into next week, this particular GFS run wants to start to move this high pressure back north again, which, if anything, could start to reinvigorate this north to northeasterly winds. So that could keep relatively chilly weather going, or maybe bring back relatively chilly weather into the middle and second half of next week. We're getting up towards day 10 now, and that is day 10, which is Friday the 10th of May. The wind is still coming from a northeasterly direction, so it still looks pretty cold, I would have thought, and probably still bringing in showers to eastern parts of the country. There will probably still be an ongoing risk of night frost, especially in the north and in the west too. In the more extended range, this area of high pressure then gets itself into the Scandinavian sort of area and starts to pull in an east to northeasterly wind. So that's going to be pretty grey, I would have thought, pretty chilly easterly winds there as we go into the extended range with the GFS. And eventually, as far as we can go, is to Thursday the 16th of May, when the high pressure is going back towards Greenland and Iceland again. So all the time, through the first half of May, the GFS is signalling winds to either be from a northerly or easterly or northeasterly direction. It's not going to be a particularly warm wind direction. We could be looking at really quite a chilly first half to May. Maybe things will warm up in the second half of May, as the ECMWF 30-day look ahead was suggesting. But certainly this first half of May is looking like it could be really quite chilly. This is a parallel GFS run, so again we've got these northerly winds setting in at the end of the week. They carry us through into weekend as well. Eventually the high pressure sort of sits over UK and cuts off that northerly as we get further into the May Day bank holiday weekend. It's not going to be a heat wave this May Day bank holiday weekend. Be nothing like as warm as Easter was, but it will start to feel progressively better as we go through the bank holiday weekend and we lose that northerly wind. Then as we go back to work, we find that high pressure begins to push back northwards again, so definite signs of northern blocking continuing as we go through into next week, potentially re-strengthening that north to northeasterly wind. That's how we look at day 10. So at that point, we're trying to move some low pressure in from off the Atlantic. So we're trying to bring some rain in from off the Atlantic. That's the other thing that we're seeing within the model output at the moment. A lot of dry weather, really, through this first half of May. Although it could be quite chilly, looks like the dry spell is likely to continue. Now, this is a bit of a change with the parallel GFS runners going a bit beyond day 10. This is Saturday the 11th of May. Then the ridge starts to build through the UK, but also starts to become centred over France. This will start to allow some warmer air to drift up from the south. So the parallel GFS running the second week of May actually starts to turn things warmer, albeit threatening to bring some low pressure in from off the Atlantic. So rather different between the parallel and operational GFS runs through the second week of May, telling us there is still quite a bit of uncertainty within the model output. There's the U word, but I know a lot of you are waiting for. This is the ECMWF, and again on Friday, got these northerly winds setting in once more across the country. They carry on into Saturday as well, a cold start to the May Day bank holiday weekend, but then the high pressure ridges down over the country, cuts off the northerly. Although it's not going to bring particularly warm weather, it will start to feel less cold and eventually warmer in the sunshine as we get through to May Day bank holiday Monday. I think that will be the best day of the bank holiday weekend, to be honest, certainly from a warm feeling perspective. Then through the course of next week, low pressure starts to try to move back in from off the Atlantic, and it actually does quite successfully move in from the Atlantic. We've got northern blocking here. The high pressure goes back northwards again, centres itself over Greenland. Suffice to say, if we'd seen anything like this through the winter months, we would have been in for a prolonged spell of very cold and potentially quite snowy weather. But there we go, we've got northern blocking as we go through up towards day 10. Low pressure is rolling in underneath it. That's one of the threats that you have with northern blocking in the summer months. When you get high pressure up here, you'll tend to get low pressure as a trough forming within the 500 millibar flow underneath it. That's a classic example of that from the ECMWF. And so we'd actually look quite unsettled as we get towards day 10 with the ECMWF, and quite chilly still as well. We're generally still on the cold side of the jet stream, got northern blocking, and we're running low pressure in off the Atlantic, so it doesn't look particularly good with the ECM as we get to day 10. These are the options that are on the table within the ECM ensembles for day 10, which is going to be the 10th of May. This is from the Icelandic Met Office, of course. Big thank you to them for giving us these charts. So we've got 23 members of the ECM ensembles, including the control and operational runs, that have high pressure blocking to the north around Greenland, low pressure rolling in underneath from the Atlantic into the UK. So obviously that's a very unsettled scenario, but it's also cool because the northern blocking pushes these northerly winds into the trough, and it sends the low pressure southwards. Suffice to say, you don't want to see that kind of setup in July or August, because a lot of our coldest and wettest Julys and Augusts tend to have appreciable levels of northern blocking around Greenland, and they'll tend to have this trough from the Atlantic into the west of Europe. So cool, wet conditions there as we go towards day 10. Then there's another 14 that have the trough centred more towards the east of the country. Again, they do have a northern blocking signal though. High pressure is up over Greenland, but we're bringing down a little bit more of a northerly type wind with that. And then there's 14 that kind of like have a flatter westerly flow, bringing low pressure in off the Atlantic, a little bit like that. Much less northern blocking, you'll notice, with those 14. So obviously that's a milder solution, although still quite unsettled. It's a milder solution. The winds are a lot more sort of southwesterly. And then as we go into 2 weeks' time, this is taking us to the middle of May. So we go to the 15th of May, 360 hours away. Looks very different then. So have 21 members of the ECM ensembles in 2 weeks' time, building high pressure over the top of the UK. 18 members of the ECM ensembles have high pressure ridging into the UK from Scandinavia. So obviously they're bringing in easy winds. These ones have just got variable winds, but the jet streams push northwards. But these are that's a warm ridge of high pressure. This is a somewhat cooler ridge of high pressure. And then there's only 12 that actually keep us unsettled in 2 weeks' time, with low pressure coming in from the Atlantic. So by the time you get through to the middle of May, it looks like it could be back to high pressure and drier, potentially warmer conditions again. That was highlighted by the ECM 30-day look ahead, of course. The first half of May looking quite cold, second half of May looking a lot warmer. It looks like that scenario is at play within the ECM ensembles this morning. Finally, this is how the CFS V2 is looking for the next month. These are 500 millibar heights. They're broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period takes us from the 30th of April to the 6th of May. The coming week has above average heights out to west-northwest of the country, below average heights across Scandinavia and eastern parts of Europe and Central Europe. In between, we're bringing in this cold northerly wind. So then going through to week 2, which is the 7th to the 13th of May, goes flatter, goes more westerly. Low pressure below average heights to our north, high pressure above average heights down to our southwest. Obviously, we're bringing in milder and flatter sort of westerly, southwesterly winds there. Week 3 begins to build high pressure up across the west of Europe as low pressure is being pushed northwards. That looks like a relatively pleasant scenario. It's drier and it's probably turning warmer as well. Winds coming up from much more of a southerly to southwesterly direction. And then in week 4, which is the 21st to the 27th of May, above average heights centre pretty much over top of the UK, really. Below average heights up to the north. Jet streams push northwards as well. So although at the moment the trends for May don't look that good, certainly from a temperature perspective it looks rather cool. It does look as though the month overall could show some pretty decent improvements, especially as we get through to the second half of the month, where it could become a lot drier and warmer once again. But we shall see. Anything over 5 to 7 days is prone to a big margin of error. Certainly in the next few days, we're going to have this cold northerly wind. That's going to take us into May Day bank holiday weekend. And then it appears that as we get through the bank holiday weekend, we will cut off the northerly, turn it mainly dry. Next week, probably staying quite chilly. And we might start to turn it more unsettled as well. So we could go into a rather cooler, wetter spell, at least for a few days, through the course of next week. Right, that's brought you up to date with all of the developments. Tomorrow we'll have another week to 10-day video update, have another May Day bank holiday weekend update as well tomorrow, and of course we'll have your week to 10-day video update with all regular features too. That's all for now though, and thanks for watching.